I have no words for that. Thank God he found it before he actually ate anything. Early on in the life of this channel, last December, I went on a trip to Florida to help my grandmother set up a more convenient hearing aid in the form of her very own pair of AirPods Pro 2, like these ones here. The ones with the USB-C port on the case, but that's beside the point. Quick lore dump. My mom bought her the AirPods. I donated an old iPhone I was going to trade in anyway, because I knew for a fact that Apple would make the hearing aid functionality only available if you used an iPhone. Look, that's just how Apple works, but I'm not here to talk about that. Getting back to the hearing aid thing. So now, for the last 6 months, my grandmother has probably gone around quite a bit with her AirPod hearing aids in her ears, which, while I was there, I confirmed they do in fact work just as well as the more inconvenient hearing aids, like the ones that you have to change the battery on and such, rather than just being able to just plop them in the case and then take them out when you need them. Which brings me to the article we will be reading and reacting to today, titled How People Decided It's Okay to Wear AirPods Anywhere, Anytime, from the Wall Street Journal by Lauren Weber. Before we find out just how extensive the AirPod, the whole AirPod adoption is, or other true wireless earbuds like the sound cord that I use for my Switch 2, be sure to give this video a like if you enjoy it. Let me know in the comments how often you wear true wireless earbuds, if at all, in the house, out of the house. I'd love to know. And subscribe for daily videos. Without further ado, let's see what the article has to say. Hi, excuse me. Hey, do I have your attention? I can't tell because your AirPods are in. Human connection was awkward enough before AirPods and their non-Apple brethren became so ubiquitous, but at least some pockets of life seemed off-limits. Not anymore. Dan Weasel, a family medicine doctor, has noticed more patients keeping their earbuds in even after he walks into the examination rooms at his practice in St. Louis. My initial reaction is, that's rude because it seems like you're not giving me your full attention, he said. Then he wonders if the person might use them as hearing aids or have a diagnosis like autism where earbuds help control sensory overload. Most of the time, Weasel has no idea if the devices are serving a legitimate purpose or simply delivering the latest episode of Smartless. Must be some kind of podcast, but anyway, those are valid points. You know, I would actually think that AirPods or true wireless earbuds would be delivering more sensory stimulation in the form of audio. Probably the active noise cancellation. They can be used as digital earplugs, if you will. Like right now, I have active noise cancellation on in mine so that I can block out everything else that the white noise machine doesn't cover, and so that I can make sure that everything I'm hearing is what's being encoded into the video. But yeah, I think you get the idea. There are, okay, for hearing aids, Right now, at this moment in time, AirPods Pro are the only ones that are graded for medical grade hearing aids. Perhaps sometime in the future, well after this video is published, there will be more like it. Who knows, maybe dedicated hearing aids that are, well, I don't know how they'll be able to distinguish them as hearing aids. They'll probably look more like hearing aids, but they'll have the rechargeable battery the same way that AirPods do. It'll definitely be a lot more convenient for most people. Like my grandmother in particular, who was tired of having to change out the batteries constantly, even though the Louis Rossmans of the world would be like, you should have a swappable battery in there so that you can easily get in there, change it out, and have a fresh new battery ready to go and create way less e-waste this way. Dude, if you want to have that kind of access to it, get the ones that do that. But let people be able to get the models that are more convenient for the average person who doesn't want to have to go in and tinker around with their electronics and such. Like me, I would rather not be able to open my iPhone. I would very much prefer to let Apple deal with it. Anyway, getting back to the article, most confusing of all is never knowing whether the wireless earbuds are on or off. It's the unknown that's sort of uncomfortable. Some patients see it differently. Joseph Montez, a 55-year-old information secretary manager who lives near Boca Raton, Florida, keeps his AirPods in all day. They're always off, but if someone calls, I can answer, he said. Do you have them in transparency mode as well? Or do you have active noise cancellation on? The devices are such a constant that when he visited the doctor recently, Montez didn't understand why the nurse was giving him dagger eyes. He finally got the hint when the doctor came in. Montez sheepishly pulled one AirPod out of his ear and, I'm a man, I'm stupid, he said. Still, he worries about removing the earbuds, even briefly. If you take it out and put it in your pocket, it can end up in the laundry and you've just washed a $250 piece of technology, he said. This is why I always pat down my pockets before I put anything in the laundry. A simple pat down of your pockets can do wonders. Whether you are making sure you have your keys before you step outside of the house and lock the door, or if you happen to, what is it? Or for making sure you don't put your electronics through the washing machine. Look, you can only do so much to make these things waterproof. Of course, they're not actually waterproof, they're water resistant because there's no reasonable expectation to bring these underwater. There's no reasonable expectation to bring your phone underwater. But it does rain. Water does splash around sometimes. So that's why water resistance is what they go for. Not complete waterproofing. Even my watch here. Actually, I think it's waterproof for the most part. I have not tried, I've never swam with my watch, and I have never, you know what, I should wear it in the shower sometime just to see what happens. Should be fine. I mean, there is a water release that I never have to use. Just an idea. In many cases, it's workers who now find it totally acceptable to do their very customer-facing jobs while other voices fill their ears. Last month, Josh Hammonds discovered an AirPod at the bottom of the bag of food he'd just picked up from a restaurant drive-thru. I have no words for that. Thank God he found it before he actually ate anything. Hammonds, sales account executive at Nashville software startup Topkey, told the restaurant and explained what he'd found. Soon after, the drive-thru employee arranged to pick up the AirPod when his shift ended. He also asked Hammonds to call his boss and explain that he wasn't angry. She's trying to write me up, saying it's a food contamination thing, Hammonds recalls the worker saying. Hammonds declined. I was like, I'm not mad, but I also don't feel inclined to advocate on your behalf. Nope, that worker completely deserves a write-up at the very minimum, you know? I can't take my AirPod out, but I can tell you right now, there is earwax inside these things from perpetual use. Pardon my language here, but finding one of those is just so fucking gross. We should not have to worry about these kinds of things in our food. This is why I usually get groceries instead of going out to restaurants. You know, this actually reminds me of Rudyard Kipling talking about how warehouse worker had, or how he thought it was ridiculous that the warehouse worker isn't allowed to wear earbuds and while working because it doesn't affect the work performance. Honestly, in food related things, there's always the risk that it can fall out. Okay, mine are in pretty securely, but yeah, it can contaminate food. That employee should be considered very lucky to not get fired. But getting back to Rudyard Kipling's example, for the warehouse, I think it's more of a safety thing where the insurance probably requires that employees are able to hear people coming in or be able to hear something coming up so that they don't, I don't know, get run over. Obviously, the manager who scolded the warehouse worker in that case should have been more transparent about why that rule exists and not just the because I said so, bruh argument. Now, look, if your boss in a W 2 job says something, tells you to do something, best to do it, respect their authority, even if you don't agree with something. If you disagree that strongly, then that might be a sign to quit. But again, I can tell you right now the no earbuds thing is probably a safety measure to make sure that they can actually to make sure that the person can actually hear something going on so that they don't get injured and then insurance doesn't have to pay out for it. Look, a lot of these rules honestly aren't just pulled out of thin air. They aren't as arbitrary. I just think that we need to do better at explaining rules. And then if we can't come up with a good explanation for it that actually makes sense, maybe we should reconsider whether we have it in the first place. Like, for example, earbuds, especially noise canceling ones, they block out noise. So, in a warehouse setting, I've never worked in a warehouse, but I'm going to guess that there's a lot of heavy machinery that could move around, and the sounds can be an initial cue, or someone saying, "Get out of the way," or something like that. Food service, anything that involves food, there's that, plus the risk of contamination, which, even if it doesn't make it out to the customer, there's still the question of, there's still the fact that if it falls in there, whatever it falls into has to be thrown away. Things have to be cleaned out. You get the idea. Because that is food. That is the one thing. Well, I think there are a couple of other things, but it's the thing that governments do unannounced inspections of on a regular basis. Sorry, I just had to get all that out there. Let's get back to the article. Hammond's own boss, Top Key founder John Sukia, says the problem, which is actual folks doing regular work with AirPods in, has escalated at places like grocery stores and his local Walmart. Walmart's dress code forbids customer facing employees from wearing earbuds, but a Reddit board for the retailer's employees suggests the policy is enforced unevenly. Several workers said they grew their hair long so managers and customers could no longer see the offending devices. Yeah, that is very discriminatory against bald people like me. I do not have any hair that I could hide these AirPods in. Here on this channel, I'm not trying to hide them. Okay, I need to be able to monitor my audio while I'm recording, so. And of course, I am the boss of this YouTube channel, so what I say is law, assuming it doesn't go against the YouTube terms of service. But yeah, it's definitely is something my sister has bragged about like 10, 15 years ago, before AirPods were a thing. She would actually use her long hair to hide regular wired earbuds to listen to something else while we were in church. Obviously, I would never have had hair long enough to do that until I was 18. And even then, I would not have done that because I personally didn't think it was worth getting in trouble over. Me, I just developed the ability to run other things through my head, like my financial numbers, without anything in front of me, because it was all I could do without getting in trouble. Look, parents can take away earbuds and such, but they can't exactly tell your mind what to focus on, can they? Yeah, my advice, if you can't wear your AirPods openly, maybe that's a sign you shouldn't be wearing them in that moment. Like, if you feel the need to hide it, obviously there's a reason you shouldn't have them in. There's bad news, though, for workers who think they can talk to customers while vibing to the latest SZA release. Humans can't multitask. Yeah, that's another problem with this whole thing. It diverts attention. Like right now, I am focused on recording this. I am paying attention to what is coming in with this. Okay, maybe the sound of the laundry machines the next room over will burst in, but my mind is focused on this right now. And I would not be surprised if some of you are listening to this in the background while you do other things, which you do you. I kind of intend this to be, I intend the visuals to be a nice little bonus and not something that this is completely dependent on. But if you're doing something that requires a little more thought, that can be a different story. So I would not be surprised if any of you are folding laundry or such, or cooking while you're listening to this. But if you're trying to do something like your budget or something, it's definitely going to split your focus because you actually have to think about that a little more, like put more thought into it compared to folding laundry, which is probably muscle memory at that point. Manual labor in general, but I digress. People can really own People really can only cognitively focus on one thing at a time, said Gloria Mark, author of the book Attention Span, and a professor at the University of California, Irvine. So when a person has earbuds in, they're either listening to their music or they're listening to you. They might think they're doing both, but what they're doing is switching their attention back and forth. Conversations about earbuds inevitably turn to philosophical topics: attention, distraction, social connection, and disconnection. As a society, in the search for grabbing more information, we're definitely sacrificing depth for superficiality, said Dan Sod, owner of a metal recycling company in the Philadelphia area. Sod likes to listen to podcasts, sometimes about Catholic mysticism, while he's sorting metal, he said. And there he is on the job, and there's the AirPod. AirPod singular, I can see, because I don't know if it's just the way that the camera is positioned, but looks like he doesn't have an AirPod in his left ear. Are right for those of you watching this, the visuals, and not just playing this in the background while doing some manual labor like Dan here. As you can see, he's got the radio there, which is probably why he only has the one AirPod in there in the first place. Yeah, the human mind can only focus on so much. It's really more of a switching thing. That's why when I was going through my thoughts when I was at church, I would essentially tune out what the priest was saying because I was focused on how I would budget for that week, how I would schedule myself accordingly, what movie I would watch that Saturday. You get the idea. I might have caught snippets of the priest saying something about how this thing that happened recently is related to XYZ in the Bible. I only really paid attention when I had to actually speak out loud. Like when I had to speak out prayers. See, that's actually another reason I think the whole trying to sneak earbuds thing in was a stupid idea. There are some things you gotta play along with for the sake of keeping up appearances. And my sister was very much distracting herself a little too much with that. But I digress. Getting back to the article, Weasel, the St. Louis doctor, said his wife, an emergency room doctor, recently examined a patient who was simultaneously engaged in a conversation on his AirPods. Have we gotten to the point where you can't give anyone your full attention, even in an emergency medical situation? He said. Wow, really? Is that honestly? I would hope that there was a reason. I thought phone calls weren't allowed to be had in doctors' offices because of patient confidentiality and such. You let me know in the comments down below if you're a doctor or if you've been to a doctor's office recently and can confirm all of this for me. Or if you watched this video, got to this point, went to the doctors at some point after the fact, noticed it, and then came back and was like, I can confirm or deny this thing is actually true based on my experience. Weasel said he is reluctant to judge too much, cognizant that norms are evolving rapidly. When the 35-year-old was a medical student, smartphones were forbidden on hospital rounds. Today, as an attending physician leading new doctors on their rounds, phones are viewed as a useful tool in the learning process. Technology influences culture and it influences manners, so I have to tell myself having earbuds in isn't something I understand intuitively, but maybe it's intuitive for Gen Z, he said. Even some Gen Zers worry about whether earbuds that are permanent fixtures signal a degradation of the culture. It's the Schrodinger's cat of communication. Someone might be listening to you, they might not, said Riley Silvernail, 28, an IT technician at a healthcare company in Georgia, referring to the quantum physics paradox where an object can seem to exist in two states at once until reality is revealed. Silvernail wrote an article, a short satire in April about an office worker who hasn't removed his AirPods since the fourth quarter of 2023. The piece notes that a growing number of professionals now treat their AirPods as permanent facial features, tiny white tusks of isolation, designed to repel spontaneous conversation, soft camaraderie, and general signs of life. When coworkers asked the HR department for its verdict on the employee's behavior, HR's response is, honestly, we stopped trying to make rules for people in 2021. We're just grateful he wears pants. My, how the standards have sunk. That's exactly what Mr. Incredible meant when he said, they are promoting mediocrity. Honestly, I'm all for just trusting that people are wearing them for a reason. Like, I think instead of requiring someone to get a medical exemption for, what was it, using them as hearing aids, I think it's a lot better to just let people wear them freely and let everyone assume they are being used as hearing aids until it is confirmed otherwise. That being said, I can definitely confirm that 10 years ago, earbuds used to be a clear sign that someone was not to be talked to. Just like some dating advice I've seen is said about whether to approach a woman in a cafe or not. Like if she's wearing earbuds, do not bother. But on that note, I'm going to leave it here for the video. You let me know in the comments down below if you've seen this phenomenon too. Whether you think it's best to just assume they're using them as hearing aids until you know otherwise. Whether you would even bother trying to get someone's attention with earbuds and such. Yeah, give this video a like, subscribe for daily videos. I will see you soon.